first started this thing?
I'll start just because I remember the first time Coach Sean got there, because I remember Coach Sean came to the room, and I don't even think we knew we were going to get it. No, Coach Brad was like, yeah, there's like this new guy, you know, he wrestled at Purdue, like da-da-da-da-da. And like he like showed us your accolades. We were like, oh, this is about to be crazy. Coach Sean walks in, he's like, hey fellas, how we doing? You know, we're going to get to work. And like for me, I had a good experience. You know, I'm a pretty good kid. You know, I listen. Some kids didn't listen as well as others, you know, but I really feel that Coach Sean's intensity is what like really brought the team together. Like I know we had one kid, Eugene, and the 2 years before Eugene, I think the first year he quit halfway through the season just cause. And the second year he just kind of was like, I don't know. He came in and he saw Coach Sean and he was like, okay, whatever. Coach Sean put that whooping on him. He like, man, teched him or something. I think it was like, he like 15 or something. And after that, like, Eugene, like, had his full-on respect, and Eugene went on to go to states and everything. His potential went up exponentially because Coach Sean wasn't afraid to, like, get in there, you know? So, not very Winnie the Pooh-ish. No, but it wasn't about that sweetness.
Yeah. He was not nice to you guys. Every time I'm a yeller, guys. I yell at these guys. He's so nice to these kids, man. He don't ever yell.
I wasn't.
He was nice. Don't get us wrong. He was nice.
He was nice,
but he expected a lot from us, and I think that.
Well, if it needed to get turned up, it got turned up really quick.
Well, let me ask you guys this. So everyone, this is Ricky. Ricky's on the left, Christian's on the right. Okay. When it comes to young men that I would recommend, these guys are at the top of the list. Okay. When it comes to who they are as people, all right, and what they represent. So they maintain a high standard at all times. I'd love to have you guys kind of pick their brains. Yeah, they can always take you back, right, on who Coach Sean was when he first started this thing, because you guys don't get to see a lot of that, all right? It's just different for me. But at the same time, there are certainly a lot that they bring to the table. So Ricky wrestled 1 year at the Naval Academy, and then went on to be transitioned to do BJJ, right?
Yep.
All right, and then he became the captain of the Navy Jiu-Jitsu team. All right, and Christian is currently at the Naval Academy as well, and currently wrestling. So, who's got a question?
Ooh, who's jumping off first?
Let's see.
Somebody give me a hand. Come on.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Let's see if we can find Tommy.
Navy noticed you the most.
Tommy, repeat that, buddy.
What do you do to make Navy notice you the most?
What's that Navy notice the most?
He said, "What do you do? What do you do to make Naval Academy recognize you the most?"
I guess the big thing, I mean, like the basics, of course, is like always winning and doing all those things. But I guess the biggest thing the Naval Academy looks for, ethos-wise, is hard work, right? Like I know a lot of guys who were on that team for 4 years, and I don't know if they were as good as like Jared Prince or things of that nature, but they worked hard. Like they would go hours on hours, making sure like they're perfecting their technique, hard-nosed grinding. So if you work hard, that's like the biggest thing I think makes Navy notice you.
Okay. Hayden Cochran. You're muted.
You're muted. You got to unmute yourself, bud. There you go. Go ahead. You're unmuted now. Hayden, buddy, your sound is terrible. Have Mom log you in or log you out. You're fuzzy, okay? Somebody is. All right.
Hayden Carver. Sorry, Coach.
It's all right.
What belt was he?
In jiu-jitsu? Blue going for a purple. So that's like halfway. So I'd say like mastery.
Good. Go ahead, Coach.
I guess I have a question, guys. I had a couple of my buddies. They ended up at West Point, another military academy. What is the daily life at a military academy like the Naval Academy? I mean, what time are you waking up? What are you guys doing outside of, I mean, as far as PT, stuff like that for the Navy side of stuff, I guess?
You want to give the prep, and then I'll give.
Yeah. So this year I went to the Naval Academy Prep School, kind of like a redshirt year. You're not allowed to stay an extra year at the academy. So what they do for most athletes is send them to NAPS for an extra year of training. So for NAPS, we woke up at 6 o'clock every morning, had formation at 6:10, went to breakfast, had class at 7:30, and another class. We have classes until 12 o'clock. Then we have lunch, class again starting at 1, and 1 to 3, and then from 3 to 3:30 you had to, well, for the wrestlers, we had to rush and walk about a mile to get to the wrestling room. And then we had practice for 2 hours. And then you had to get back, walk another mile to get to chow before it closes, and then do your homework, and then be ready to wake up and do it again the next day.
Yeah. And then, so when you go to the Naval Academy, normally it's kind of structured the same way. You might wake up early to get like an extra workout in, like really depends on how you're doing, but the room is open at all times. Like once 0530 comes about, then 0600, 0630, wake up, go to formation, like everybody gets together, and you make sure everybody's accounted for in there. You go to eat, go to class, wrestle. You either were wrestling or you're lifting. Then you like scarf down your food real quick. You go to your afternoon classes. Then you go to wrestling practice. Like you said, you're in there for about 2 hours. And after that, I'd argue you have like maybe 2 hours of free time. But usually what happens is like you shower up. In that first hour is like you eat, kind of get your life together. Like that's the showering portion. Then the second hour, you can either, like, I will go straight, do my homework, get to work, but that's like club time. So like if you're like we have a athletes like Fellowship Christian Association club. I sang for Trident Brass, so I'm also a singer for our jazz band. That time was 1900 to 2000. So like that slot's usually taken by something. And then from literally 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., that's like study time. Go to sleep, and you repeat that every day, and it's just like clockwork. So
in a given day, guys, you would say you were up every morning a little before 6, and then you were going to bed at 11 every day, full day from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
Takes a lot of discipline too, fellas. That's impressive. So.
Well, wrestling and Coach Sean helped a lot to lay that foundation of, hey, it's okay. You just got to keep pushing it.
They're giving me too much credit, Coach. So, fellas, did you want to go to the military your entire lives?
So yeah, both of us did. My father, just so you all know, my dad, he went to the Naval Academy too. He didn't wrestle, but he was like very active, like at the academy. Like had to persevere through a lot during his time there. But made a lot of his life, became a captain. He's like the 8th African-American to ever command a submarine. So like he really like stick to it. And like I said, that perseverance, that like discipline that you were talking about beforehand, like that was integral for him to make the achievements that he made. So.
Okay. Well, one more boring question, and then I'm going to open it up to the kids for a second. So I consider your dad to be a mentor, and he talks a lot about legacy. Okay. So what does legacy mean to you guys, and why is it important for them?
Okay. Now, you guys are real young. I don't know how young you are, but right now there are probably some things that are like important to you, you know? When it comes to wrestling, like winning's probably important to you. I don't know if y'all play video games, but that next PS4 game, or I guess PS5 now, I heard that's coming out. Like, Fortnite, whatever those things are. Those like things that are fun to you. Like those are really important to you. But in the end, like throughout your life, you're going to have like different changes, right? You're going to evolve. You're going to go to high school, college, do whatever you're going to do in life. And you'll come to find that in the end, the thing that really matters is how you affected the people around you, you know? I know you probably see your coaches, you see them as mentors, and I assure you that when you go on in life, you'll stay connected with them and you'll be looking to them for advice and things of that nature, whether it be wrestling or with life. Coach Sean taught me how to drive. But like using that example, like I know for a fact, I will never forget Coach Sean taught me how to drive. I will never forget the time that he took in order to make my life better, whether it be wrestling or whether it be my normal life. So it's the same for you guys. It's the same for what you do for the people around you. How are you going to make other lives better? How are you going to impact other people? How are you going to motivate them to do the things that either you're leading them to do or want them to do, you know?
And how people remember you too. And so do you want to be remembered as a hard worker or somebody who was always asking questions to coach, or do you want to be seen as the guy who always slacked off and went outside whenever and didn't ask questions or left early for practice, right? And it's also for your friends and your teammates. If you have somebody who's your practice partner, how will they remember you? As a good practice partner, as somebody that wasn't just a practice partner, but also a friend, right?
All right, who's got a question? Kendall.
So, about how many females are in the wrestling program, and if there are any, and what chances do you have after you go through training?
Okay. So at Navy, we don't have a female wrestling program. We have a lot of females on the jiu-jitsu team. But with the way things are going, like, how old are you right now?
12.
Yeah, I would not be afraid to bet money that in the next 6 years they're going to be working towards something of that nature, you know? So I would continue to work hard. Like your athletic achievements, like if you are interested in the Naval Academy, your athletic achievements that you make throughout your life, that hard-nosedness, that discipline that comes from wrestling, they love to see that. They love that.
And girls are allowed to wrestle in RTC. So Coach, they do have RTC out in Indiana, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course they do. So yeah, if you meet the RTC requirements, you're able to go to the RTC practices that they have during the week.
Go to the Naval Academy over the Air Force Academy or
Go ahead, Kendall. Go ahead. She's follow up.
Okay, so my dad was in the Army, and so why should I go to Navy over Army? What's the difference?
Ooh. Okay. There are reasons that you're not worried about right now, but I think okay. So Army, West Point is very isolated, you know, West Point is not near New York City, you know, it's New York, but it's
it's like an hour 30 away.
Yeah, hour 30 away. So they're very compact. I feel like that has a positive effect on the bonds that they create, but they also have a harder time getting out.
Okay.
So when it comes to a little bit freedom, when it comes to your weekends too, at Navy, those are a little bit more flexible. At West Point, your weekends for everybody is usually training, but at Navy, it might be training. It really depends on your company, things of that nature. Let's see.
Gunner, go ahead. Gunner, you got a question?
People are happier at Navy. People are happier at Navy.
Gunner.
How many years have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
Ooh, so I've been doing jiu-jitsu now for 3 years. Like Coach said, I wrestled. I lost my last wrestle off my sophomore year. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do jiu-jitsu for this time period. I'm going to come back and I'm going to just start whooping dudes. So that's what I did. I went to jiu-jitsu, kept my wrestling up. And honestly, doing the jiu-jitsu and coming back to wrestling did wonders for my riding, number one. Number two, I was able to get off a bottom a lot easier, very surprisingly, right? You'd think that, you'd, be more comfortable on the bottom, but it's your ab strength and your, ability to move gets a lot better. And was, going, and came back. And I was like, man, I really like jiu-jitsu. It was really good. So, that's the reason why, I went back to wrestling just to make sure, I could do it, you know, to prove something to myself. Hey, could I get back on this team and make it happen?
All right.
And, once I, felt like I could do that, I was like, man, I'm going to keep with this jiu-jitsu and make it happen. So that's been good. And wrestling is instrumental. Wrestling, the reason why jiu-jitsu has been going so well is because the controlling your opponent, putting pressure into your opponent, in the conditioning aspect of wrestling and takedowns are like here. Like those components of wrestling will put you eons above anybody else in grappling because of those. Then there are certain little nuances, like you don't want to stick your neck out, right? You don't want to do like little things. Don't extend your arms always. One arm in wrestling is great if you're trying to scramble. One arm in jiu-jitsu, you might get triangle choked, you know? So there are little nuances there, but pressure, takedowns, and conditioning for wrestling takes you far.
Solid. What else? Brady Miller.
You getting it, Brady? There you go.
Yeah. My brother wants to go to Army West Point for wrestling. Is that a good pathway after college?
Well, it is college.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if your brother wants to go to West Point, like in the end, we love Navy, but West Point is not only an amazing school. One thing West Point does have is West Point has more of a variety of majors. Yeah. So, like, if he's interested in some, like, different things, that's a good place for him. The wrestling program's doing great. Mm-hmm. And if you go to any of the military academies, you guys probably aren't concerned with this right now, but, like, after the military academy, your future's set. Like, people will hire you just because you went to West Point or just because you went to Naval Academy or Air Force Academy. So when it comes to, like, planning out your future, like, if you want something surefire, like, hey, I want to be in the military and, like, the benefits of being an officer, going to a service academy is really helpful.
What does it mean to be an officer?
Ooh, okay. So you can actually explain it if you want.
Okay.
Like what it literally means.
Okay, yeah. So basically officers, as people describe it the best, they're managers of the enlisted folk. They're the leaders. And so the enlisted, so if say you had a, what's a good specialty to go into? Well, you could say, well,
whatever, like a yeoman or.
Yeah, so like a yeoman is like an administrative, they work with the administrative tasks. Yeah. Or let's say like an FM. So like if they like work with the viewings of the ship, like a boatswain's mate, they'd work with like fixing the ship.
Right, okay.
And the officers would work with more or less the paperwork and directing it.
Yeah. So like break down like an officer, you get your college degree, and military academy is a commissioning source, but like you can go to officer candidate school after getting your getting your degree out of any college. Mm-hmm. And join a specific branch. So you don't need to go to a military academy to join the military. Like you said, officers are managers on a ship. That means like most people on a ship, like you can look at the rates almost like people who can work the sensors and stuff on a ship and people who fix the ship. And then you are the manager of making sure that stuff gets done or people get training, or you need to get training too, by the way. But you're not, when you're an officer, you're not the one cranking the wrench. You know what I'm saying? And that's like a hard thing for some people to get. There's this book, Gates of Fire. It's a very long book, and it's a little boring in the beginning, but it really picks up. Gates of Fire. It's about the Spartans, the Battle of Thermopylae, like the Battle of 300. Okay. And King Leonidas, mm-hmm. like he is like lifting the barrels with his men, you know, like he's like doing the work with his men to show his men that like he's there with them, like he's one with them, you know. And I think when it comes to wrestling, that's a very, very, very important and good mentality. You need to be putting in the same work, if not more work, than the people who you're either leading or your teammates. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
But when it comes to your managerial job, you're not supposed to be the one cranking the wrench. You're supposed to be one that trusts your people enough that you know they're going to do their job right. And you can look at them and be like, I know you're going to do your job right. Please get this done by X amount of time, and I'll be back to check. Boom. Right?
Coach Ryan,
so
Coach Ryan said he got one for you.
I got one kind of following up on that leadership and officers. And so you guys have obviously been through wrestling in school, and now you're in the military academies, and you're around leaders, whether it be officers in the military, coaches like Coach Sean, your father. You guys are around a lot of different leaders. What would you say are maybe 2 or 3 qualities that you think all leaders should have that these kids could embody if they wanted to be leaders in the future, or leaders on this team or their team or in school? Or no, what are 2 or 3 key components to leadership that you think all leaders should have, I guess?
You want to give one?
Yeah, passion is one of my favorites. If you're not passionate about what you do, then you're not going to put your all into it. No matter how much you think you are, you're not going to put your all. So you have to be passionate about what you do.
So yeah, passion. I think discipline.
Yep,
right.
That's what I was gonna say too.
And I think that's like one of the beauties of wrestling, right? There are just certain sports where you literally can't even function without just a basic level of higher discipline. You know, like you go there every day, especially when I was in college. Like you're cutting that weight while you're doing everything at the same time. But like if you have that discipline to persevere through those things, and you have that stick-to-itiveness inside of you to persevere, then the people who are following you, the people who want to like be behind you, they'll see that, you know, they'll respect that, and they'll want to emulate that, right? Let's see. So that was I put discipline into mental toughness too. Mental toughness, really, because if you're mentally tough, you can like persevere through like the things that are like bombarding you through your day to day. If you're physically resilient, right? That's like you're like keeping your body right. Like that's physically being able to get through the day-to-day grind, the day-to-day stressors that you're going to. And then the last thing I want you guys to keep in mind as well as you're going through is emotional competency, right? Emotional competency. Understanding and perceiving like how the people around you are feeling, right? Not everybody takes the same thing the same way, right? Some people, when their hands are on the ground, they're on all fours and they need to get up, right? Like you need to push them down on their head to get them up. You know what I'm saying? You need to like force them, and that's how they work, right? Some people, you got to take a second, pause, be like, hey, you got this? Like, do you need X, Y, and Z, you know? Like being able to work with their mental, understanding, he's really messed up right now. Or like, he's in a great mood. Let's like work off that. Let's like put him in the front to show like, hey, like, let's motivate ourselves through this, right? So emotional competency, understanding the emotions of the people around you, how the other people around you feel, and then being able to work with that.
Yeah, I think we do. Kids, not to dive into that, but how many of you have heard Coach Sean or I talk about being mentally tough? Or how many of you talked about, how many times have I screamed at practice, I can't care more than you care? Because if I care more than you care, you're not passionate about it, right? So these are things I'm glad that they're mentioning this. I think we instill in you guys. But I think one thing that you don't notice, and I'm going to piggyback off them, emotional competency that you guys may not know that Coach Sean and I do, okay? Sometimes we yell at certain kids. I will yell at Revin until the day he dies because Revin works better when I yell at Revin, okay? There are other kids that I don't yell at hardly at all, and I think sometimes you guys think that's me taking it easy on them. Certain kids don't respond to yelling. They respond better. Coach Sean or I pull them aside and talk to them privately, right? So that's being emotionally competent, and I think that's great. I feel better because as a leader now, I'm hearing them say those things because I think I do an okay job of those things, but I want you guys to start thinking about those things as leaders in practice, right? Or at school or at home. How can you be a better leader to the people around you? So thanks, guys. That was awesome. I'll pick the next person. I saw a couple hands. Goose, go ahead and give me one.
What advice would you tell somebody that's starting wrestling?
Ooh, starting wrestling.
Stick with it. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That's the most powerful thing you have. And also, the second most powerful thing you have is Coach Sean and Coach Parrish too.
Because I know good guys. You don't know Coach Ryan, but he's good. You got to give him credit.
I know. I said both. I said both.
All right.
But I know that they're both very skilled in their craft, and so don't be afraid to ask them questions. And then also, the thing that you can do is work hard. That's something that you don't need instruction on. Like Coach Sean shouldn't have to tell you to work hard. Coach Parrish shouldn't have to ask you to work hard. That's something that you have to do first.
Yeah. And I will also say, if you're just starting to, like, there's going to be a lot of things thrown at you. You know what I'm saying? A lot of technique, a lot of basics, but get your basics down. And after that, when you're trying to grow, really like hone in what you need, get the feedback, get constant feedback, and make sure it's constructive. Make sure you know specifically what you did wrong and how you can improve it. I think one thing I could have done a lot better in my journey is getting feedback and correcting myself, even if I won. There were a lot of times I won and I'd see something and I'd be like, oh, well, that could have been a better shot, but it's okay. I still won, you know? Even if you win, make sure you're critically analyzing everything you do, right? Analyze everything you do. Get the feedback and get better. If you're not getting better, Coach Antonelli at the Naval Academy say, if you're not getting better, you're dying.
Right.
You know? So get better. Constantly getting better. 1% a day.
Good. Eads.
Has there been anything in your life, like an injury, that tried to set you back from what you wanted?
Hang on. Let me set this up, okay? So, was it your senior year, Ricky?
It was senior year.
All right. So, when it comes to most of you won't know who John Tringe is, but John Tringe used to wrestle with these goggles, okay? He went to Lehigh, and, you know, there was literally only one pair that had or one person we had ever seen do this. Ricky's wrestling one day in practice, and he gets up and he's kind of like, I keep seeing these spots, right? Well, the next thing you know, we find out Ricky has a detached retina. Okay, so he has a detached retina, and he goes all about go ahead, Ricky. What all went into this?
So my coach said all day I was seeing like fuzzy things in my eyes. And the worst thing I could have possibly done is I kept messing with it throughout the day, of course. I went to practice, like did my usual thing, and I was like, man, like I don't know what it is, but it's really bothering me. And we'd been preparing for the senior year. Like, I mean, we'd been on it like all summer, grinding. Like I was ready to go. And I went home, and I remember I went to my dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, like my eyes a little fuzzy. I don't know what it is. And if you go to the Naval Academy, there's this process called DODMERB. It's a medical process, and they have to make sure you're medically cleared before you can go. And we were like, hey, like and if it's bad, they like are gonna like hold you back. So we were like, hey, like we can wait on it a little bit. So, you know, like I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and I'm in class, and I look up, and my eye moves like this, and my vision slowly starts drifting behind it. And I'm like, that's not good. So call my mom. We go to the doctor, and literally maybe like 2-3 hours later, find out I have a detached retina. So the way you see, there's a little thing behind your eye. There's a little flap behind your eye, and the light bounces off. That's how you see. And mine was falling off. And if it falls off, it's off. It ain't coming back. So mine almost like fell off. Like it was almost completely off. So what they had to do is they had to do surgery, emergency surgery that morning. So what they did something called a scleral buckle. They put the retina back. They wrap a band around it. They stitch it together. And then you're out of commission for maybe 2-3 weeks. So I got the surgery, and it went well. They were surprised. It was like crazy. And I go back for one of my post-ops, maybe like 2 weeks later, and they say, hey, the scarring is messing it up, so we're going to have to go back in. We're going to try this experimental thing, and we're going to see if that works. So went back in, got the surgery, and after that one, it like stayed together. It was good to go. And came back. Of course, my conditioning is gone. It's been, 6-7 weeks or so. But Coach Sean gets me on the Aerodyne bike, suit up, and just start pedaling. And I'm talking about hours. Like, I mean, I'd be on that job for an hour pushing, right, to get my conditioning back up. And finally, the big piece of it was, okay, my conditioning's back up, my physicality's back up. How is the wrestling going to go, right? So what we decided to do is we took some of those sports goggles you've probably seen, like if someone's playing football or whatever, attached them, like weaved them through the headgear. My dad like figured out the contraption for that. Tightened them up, and my whole senior year, I wrestled with goggles on. And it was crazy. I'd never imagined having to do that my whole entire life. But it was to make sure that in the end, like what I needed to do was protected, and it wasn't going to stop me from wrestling. And it worked to my advantage too, because at the Naval Academy, they tried to prevent me from getting a medical waiver because of my detached retina. And one of the things that worked in my favor is my dad suggested we write a letter. And in the letter, he put a picture of me wrestling with the goggles on to show that, like, in the end, like, I did what I needed to do, protect it, and it was hardy enough to go through a whole season of wrestling. So whatever injury you have, you're going to get a lot of injuries during your time wrestling. But I promise you there's, like, no injury you're going to get unless you lose a limb, and even then you can. That's going to prevent you from wrestling if you want it enough. So.
Okay, guys, I got one. I'm just guessing, you guys are what, 19, 20, maybe 21?
I'm 21.
You're 22, and you're 22.
Oh, I'm 22. That's crazy. I had a
22.
birthday a couple days ago.
I'm 19.
19 and 22. So I kind of, to follow up, I'm always intrigued by the guys that go into the military, the schools, because most guys, when they go to college, they think, I'm going to go, live life in a sorority. I'm going to, or, whatever, and live a good, fun life, go to parties, live the college scene, date girls, be around. What for you made you decide that this is the path I want to take in life? Because I want to wake up at 6. I want to be this person. I want to have this level of discipline. Because that's not an easy choice at 19. There's a lot of draws that pull you different ways, right? And that can even start in high school. So how did you decide that this is the path that you two needed to take? And I guess why did you choose that path?
You can start this one. So I've been thinking about this. Because it's easy to think, well, I've always wanted to do the military, but the question is, well, why? And I told during at NAPS, which is the school I was at, and on the board for leadership positions, they chose me to be battalion commander. And they asked me, so I basically led the school. I was like the top student. I was in charge of the student body. And they asked me in my interview, why service? And I think what I said is that somebody has to do it. And thinking through it, I don't see why I shouldn't do it. I don't think that I think that it fits me. From the hard work, I know I can put that in. We've gone through seasons after seasons of practices and hard falls. I know I can be disciplined, and I know it'll push me, but if you're not getting pushed, you're not going to grow. And so you got to take one step and see where it goes. And I wouldn't be happy at a civilian college, I don't think. I think there'd be too many people fooling around and not really knowing what they want to do.
Right.
But as Coach Sean always said, get after it. You got to get after it. And so if I want to build my legacy, then the first step is doing something that I know that will take me out of my comfort zone and challenge me, and that I know that will pay off in the end.
Okay, kind of follow up on that. So you're talking about, something that gets you out of your comfort zone, or there's a time at 6 o'clock in the morning you got to be up, and you just went through the day before where you went, all day. The last thing in the world you want to do is get up at 6 o'clock. Okay, let's transition that to some of these guys. The last thing they want to do is do more burpees or do more, knees to chest that Coach and I are making them do. What is something you mentally, maybe self-talk, or I don't know if it's self-talk for you, what is the thing that you tell yourself or that you do to push through that instant, that moment when you're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if right now I want to wake up, right? What's that thing you tell yourself to push through those times when you maybe don't want to do something where you've got to get out of your comfort zone?
There's two things for me, especially like with my college time going down. One thing is, in the end, when you lose, you're going to wish you did them extra burpees, When you lose, you're going to wish you did those extra high knees because your opponent did those extra high knees, right? Did those jump knees we used to do after our matches, you know? So it's keeping in mind the fact that, like, when you lose, you're going to wish that you did what you needed to do to win. And also know that when you're taking a break, I remember we have this book, Wrestling Strong, and it talks about, like, Gable's mindset. And it was like, when you're taking a break, your opponent's not taking a break, you know? Every time that you chill out, every time you decide I'd rather play Fortnite, or every time you decide to do which way or whatever, your opponent who wants to win is working harder than you. And that idea that someone's trying to work harder than me to get what I want, we're not having that. We're not having that. So, like, remember, someone else is out there trying to beat you. Mm-hmm. They're trying to beat you, and in your laziest moments, they're working even harder.
Mm-hmm. We've been trying to, right now, obviously it's a crazy time in the world in general, but trying to keep these kids like, we got to do something, guys, because if we're not doing something, we're not going to continue to grow. We're not going to continue. It's not ideal, right? There's no wrestling. We can't take you to wrestling practice. We can't do. So we're going to do things like these Zoom meetings. So, yeah, it's just finding that thing that your opponent's not doing. And I think that's what we're trying to do with these guys. All right, I'll get one of these kids. Who has a question, kids? Give me a hand. Timmy, you've had a hand up a couple times. Give me one, Timmy. Go ahead.
Is it hard for you to, like, did it take you a while to figure out your time management?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm gonna have to work on it again next year. It's not like I don't know what I'm doing. It's not like I'm not getting my work done. That's not the thing. But it's what's most effective for me. Because it's like also balancing, okay, I need to, instead of just going pounding academics, it works. But then what do I do with all the stress? Like, when can I go find time to relieve it, right? And working in stuff like that instead of going full steam ahead. And so it's a changing process, but don't be afraid to change the process, but also don't procrastinate. That's the last thing you can do.
All right, Hayden Cochran, what do you got?
What move do you drill the most in the wrestling room?
Yeah, you know I do.
You can say it because you got.
I'm a thrower.
No, we're gonna talk about.
I like to throw. But that being said, for wrestling, I have to be more versatile. People know I throw. They're not gonna let me throw, and so I gotta shoot. And so it's like you can't put all your chips in one bag. So yeah, but if you want to know what I drill the most and have drilled the most, throws, flat drop.
Yeah. So Coach, this is a true story. So raise your hand, guys, if you wrestled freestyle or Greco before. Right. So guys, if Ricky and Christian look at this, they're not going to believe it because where they started wrestling, they didn't have wrestling as a kid for the most part. Right. There was Bowie, but in PvP you didn't have that, and so. We go to wrestle freestyle Greco State, and Christian's never wrestled Greco before. We go to register him. He didn't want to wrestle it, Coach. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
He had a fixed mindset, absolutely 100% fixed mindset on wrestling Greco. The next thing you know, he learns how to throw, and he never took another shot in his life. We're still working on it.
So going back to that, that's why I am coach. My very first coaching experience, I had a 4-year-old Trey. We talked to him last week. Trey would throw headlock after headlock, and I'm like, we couldn't break the headlock, and then we started getting beat with the headlock. So that's why I banned headlocks from the little guys. So now Hayden Cochran loves Greco, and Christian just made it A-okay for him to throw all practice.
Yeah, no. So
Christian.
So
listen to coach.
When I came in, so guys, so for Ricky and Christian, when I came in, we started doing some throws. Coach Ryan's looking at me like, I don't know, Coach. I don't know. All right, these kids are going to fall in love with throwing, and we'll go from there. So, Christian, what are you doing to mentally make that leap? What are you doing to work on taking shots? What are you telling yourself in practice? What does that look like?
Right. So this year, all of this year, I made it so at first I was like, I can hit one throw per practice. We did a lot of live up at Naps. It was a lot of just intensive, like we drilled, intensive drill, and then we went into live. And so I was like, The rest of the time, I need to take at least 10 shots per practice. And if I didn't take 10 shots per practice, I owed myself 100 push-ups. And it was like that constant back and forth. Okay, if you don't do this, then you're going to pay for it another way. Keeping yourself responsible. And I'm still working on it. I think it's, again,
it looked a lot better in them Nabs videos, bro. I was like, man, I don't know what they did up at Nabs, but he's shooting now.
Okay, that's good.
You work on it, but you got to tell yourself and hold yourself responsible, because the coaches are telling you for a reason, and then you should have that same conversation with yourself.
So Friday we had a whole thing about holding yourself accountable. We made all the kids list out 3 things they were going to do about self-accountability. So I'm glad you said that, because the self-accountability is huge. If you're not holding yourself accountable, especially right now when you're stuck at home, can't do your normal routine,
Right.
self-accountability is huge. So that's awesome. I saw Kyle Riley. Go ahead, buddy.
Are you gonna make the Navy your career? If you aren't, what career are you gonna go into?
So I plan on it, but you never know till you're in it. But yeah, no, I do plan. And so just so you guys know as well, when you say career, that's like 20 plus years, right? So you never really know like what's going to happen in the next 20 plus years, but at least that's my plan right now. And after that, if I decide to retire and do that thing, maybe become a teacher. I don't know.
I have 4 years still, but right now I'm looking in the Marine Corps, and I would like to make that a career if I did choose that route.
You can go Marine Corps from the Naval Academy too, by the way. That's a good point.
Bryden, you have one too, buddy. Since I got you unmuted, go ahead.
How long have you been in the Navy?
So technically, all the blooming life, sir. But I've been at the Naval Academy. So this will be my 4th year. So 4th year. I'm about to graduate in less than a month, or about a month. And I will be an 01 in the Navy, and I'm going to do submarines as my job. So
technically, this is my 1st year in the Navy.
All right. Who else has got one? Somebody else give me a hand. Case Bridge, is your hand up? I can't tell. No? Okay. Jay Cockaday, go ahead.
What's your favorite food in college?
Man, burger they be hitting. Every Wednesday they have burgers, and since I was a heavyweight, I get double rations because I lose weight during the season, and so I could get 2 burgers, and so I get a turkey burger and a beef burger, and that was always very good.
Man, they used to have this thing. So this is real funny because I was cutting such hard weight freshman year. They have this thing called Buff Chicks. It's buffalo chicken sandwiches. And I couldn't eat Buff Chicks all season. I couldn't. And I mean, the seasons, especially in college, I mean, you start going like on that regimen, like shoot, I think we were really on it like September. And that went all the way up until like March. So I couldn't eat Buff Chicks my whole 1st year. And usually what happens is people get sick of it, but I never got sick of it because I never had them. So then once I stopped living that weight loss lifestyle, I said, whenever there's Buff Chicks during the week, I'm eating Buff Chicks. It doesn't matter. I'll burn it off. I'll do whatever. At practice, it might hurt.
Quick story about the Bryants. We were at States one year, and I look over Ricky's shoulder, and he's literally just watching videos of food. Non-stop for about 2 hours. He just watched food recipes, food being cooked the entire time. So he was working towards being able to eat after States were over.
Wrestlers, raise your hand if you watch the Cooking Network, because when you're cutting weight, who here watches the cooking show? Yeah. Yep. I'm so guilty of that. That's how I fell in love with cooking shows, because I watched it when I was cutting weight. So
oh, man.
Sean Nolan, you got one?
So where are you guys wanting to be stationed? Like what part of the U.S.?
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background, so the way this is going to work is in a couple months, I'm going to go down to Charleston, South Carolina. I go to a school specifically for nuclear engineering, like because I'll be on nuclear subs. After that, there's another type of school called Prototype. It's kind of like a vocational school. I think that's the best way to put it, where you're actually working with the nuclear reactor. And then afterwards, go to submarine school, and then you get on a sub. So I would like to be on what's called a fast attack submarine, which means like you're on the front lines, you're at the tip of the spear, you're doing the spy stuff. You're making it happen, right?
Yeah.
Our dad was on fast marines. So that would be either someplace like Groton, or you could go all the way to Hawaii or Guam. So I'm not really particular about where when it comes to that, as long as I'm on a fast attack. So Groton sounds nice though. Groton's in Connecticut.
And I don't have anywhere in particular I'd want to be stationed. I like to adventure, so I'd go anywhere.
Lyric, you had one. Go ahead, girl.
So what are you gonna do after when you graduate?
Oh, so I've academy for a little bit. So I will be working with admissions to try and get kids like y'all in. So
You're going to be good at that, let me tell you. After this interview, you're going to be good at that. You're selling me. I'm about to enlist. Landon, go ahead.
If you won state, when did you win it?
Ooh, yeah. I didn't win state. I tried 3 years, got third all 3 years. I had the South River was the school to beat. In semifinals, I lost a close one. Quarterfinals, I lost a close one, literally last second. And senior year semifinals, I lost again. And it's more or less a thing again. I wasn't pushing myself outside my comfort zone. That's all I used going forward. And if I just had tried more and opened up to shoot more, it would have been a different story. But it's a learning lesson. And I still got to Navy regardless. They still recruited me regardless. And I think that's accredited to the work that you're willing to put in after you lose.
So, guys, so Christian, tell me this. I was a part of this in college when I was a junior. The head coach at Purdue at the time was fired. We went through all the interviews to bring in the new coaches, and I got fortunate in my case because it was comfortable, right? They brought in a current assistant coach on the staff and made him the head coach. Now you're going from Sherritt, right, to Kola. So what does that change look like for you? What are you looking forward to there? And what has it been like for you to go through that process?
So it's going to be something totally new. And I like that, though. Again, as I said, I like adventure. And so that's going to be a brand new adventure. And I know that regardless of anything, regardless of there being a new coach or there being a shift, I'm still going to work my butt off. And so I don't have anything to fear. More or less, I'm excited to see what he can offer. Because I've been used to Sherritt. I've known Sherritt for a long time, Coach Sherritt for a long time. And so when there's something new, you can always pull something off of that. Mr. Keyser, he used to wrestle at Navy. He always said, be a sponge. And so I don't know Coach Cole yet. I assume that there wouldn't be any problems. But say there were, I'd still be there to absorb all the knowledge I can. And he's still my coach, right? And you still have to be able to, okay, I can accept this and keep working past this. Again, it's about discipline. Because at the end of the day, everybody has the same goal in mind to win. Mm-hmm. And so we're all going to work towards that regardless. So I'm excited, Coach.
Kendall, go ahead.
Okay, so we got this stuff. It's called frog fuel. It's developed by the Navy SEALs. Have you ever heard of it?
Frog fuel?
I think it's along the same lines. There's this whole what do you call like a supplement brand that's based on like military things. There's like the MREs. Yeah. So I have heard of it.
I haven't tried. I was gonna try it.
But I mean, whatever works for you, I think that's the biggest thing. Whatever helps give you your little advantage, like as long like you don't need it though. Always know that you winning is internal. Like you winning is up to you putting in that work. And there's never going to be a magic pill or magic potion that's going to make it better. But at the same time, I assure you, the people at the highest level are doing everything in their power to be at the highest level. So,
Who else has got one? Am I not seeing? Timmy, go ahead. Looks like your hand's up. Guys, give me a hand if you still got a question. Go ahead, Timmy.
Ever just made you feel like quitting?
Ooh, I can give you that one.
Okay, go ahead.
So, okay, my plebe year wrestling. So, number one,
What's a plebe year?
Oh, sorry, my freshman year. Freshman year.
All right.
And I remember, I think the first bit that I felt about it was when I went into the summer for wrestling in the summer, I didn't have a locker. And I was like, okay, that's not a big deal. I'll just kind of figure that one out. And into the year, again, now really, when it really mattered, I was on the team, again, I didn't have a locker. Gear issue. I didn't get issued gear. I was like, okay. So I had to walk my way to the athletic, one of the athletic trainers and be like, hey, I need my gear, and there were just these constant little things that started to pile up. And I'm like, I'm definitely not being treated like the rest of this team. And the other big thing too. So I had their periods like you have in school, like you guys still have right now. You have those at the Naval Academy. But your last period ends at 3:20 and practice starts at 3:40, 3:45. So you have that short time period to book it to your building. I didn't get given amnesty. You can get an amnesty if you're an athlete for sixth period. I didn't get that. So you have to rush there, you have to change, and then you have to be out there ready to practice right at that time. And that takes a lot of time because my last class was on the other side of campus as well. It was absolutely ridiculous. And every day I'd be sprinting my butt off to get to practice. And they'd be like, hey man, why are you so close to the start time? Come on, you gotta make it happen. You gotta go. And I'm like, I have a sixth period. I'm struggling to do this.
But they didn't give you a break.
No breaks. And literally every day it would be something. Every day there would be some sort of, you need to not even constructively get better. It was just stop sucking, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, this is really wearing on me. And I'd hit up Coach Sean every now and then and be like, hey, Coach, really trying to improve, trying to figure this out. But really what worked in my favor that whole year is I worked harder than anybody else in that room. When I could, so when second semester hit and I was able to get that 6-period blocker, I was in the room before everybody else, making it happen. I was staying later than everybody else, either working technique or getting on the bike for my conditioning or weight, always making sure that no matter what, even if I wasn't beating a certain guy, I was working harder than that guy, and to make sure it was known I was working harder and trying to take that spot, So on one hand, I felt like I didn't feel like quitting, but it felt like somebody was trying to get me to quit, but didn't quit. Didn't stop.
So when you go back to that, Ricky, and you're getting what you feel like is an unfair treatment, or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but you're doing that. Your options there probably are you could take that personally and walk away, right? Or you can say, I'm gonna prove to these guys wrong. You're gonna get me a locker because I'm gonna outwork everybody else. You're gonna, it's not. You can try to push me out. You can try to stack the deck against me, but I'm not leaving, and I'm going to be here early, and I'm going to stay late, and that's kind of a mentality thing. So what do you if one of these kids, let's say they're their middle school coach, or maybe they're mad at me, they're mad at Coach Sean, they feel like we're kind of on them too much, or we're not giving them a fair shake, what mentally did you tell yourself? Was it just a pride thing, or was it to work harder, to stay late, to not give up, I guess?
I guess you can look at it so there's an idea called stoicism. And in the end, when it comes to what you guys would be worried about is the things that you can't control, you can't control it. I couldn't control them getting me a locker. I couldn't control whatever that coach wanted to do to me. But what I could control was how hard I worked. What I could control, no matter if I got that approval or not, is how long I was going to stay or what I did to get a little edge over somebody else, you know? So know what you can control. Know what you can control and take control of it. And what you can't control, don't let it eat at you. Because in the end, you can't do anything about it. So.
Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of that right now. You know, there's things we can't control going on. So we're trying to keep everybody in that mindset. Carver, you've had your hand up for a minute. Go ahead, buddy.
Do you guys get in the Navy? Do you guys get to travel to any cool places?
Yes. So I mean, even when you're in school, right? I got to go to Japan for free, and they gave me money. So that's one of the greatest things about the Naval Academy. I really feel, out of all the places, right? Like out of all the places that can set you up for success, you will be given countless opportunities to do it. Just throwing opportunities at you to make you successful. If you were not successful there, that was on your own volition, you know? So go out, like, yes, you get to explore cool places, but I think the biggest piece there is opportunities. Opportunities to get better, opportunities to become smarter, opportunities to see the world. So, yes.
Give me hands, guys. Get a couple more here. We're running out of time, but give me a couple more. One of the Eads boys, are your hands going up? I can't tell. No? Okay. Timmy, go ahead.
Did you guys ever argue over who was a better wrestler when you guys were kids?
No. Though what's funny, when we were younger, we were like around the same weight. You can't really tell from the camera, but I'm a lot smaller than Christian. Christian's a heavyweight. I wrestled 133 in college. So, and I'm not 133 height either. I was skinny. So when we were younger, I would put the hurting on him a little bit, you know, like big brother style. But once Christian got big, I still try and challenge him in the room, you know. I was like, if he walks by, I got to make sure that he's still ready to go, you know. But I think Christian has gone above and beyond with the wrestling.
I can attest to that. But Ricky, real quick, what is it like for you? So we have siblings in the club, obviously, or in the academy. What is it like for you? What advice would you give to any sibling out there to help brother or sister move along in wrestling or in life?
Push each other to be great. I think that's number one. Like, push each other to be great, but also remember your brother's accomplishments are like your accomplishments. You should be just as proud of your brother for doing the thing that he did that he is about himself doing it. You know, when Christian would like achieve things at States, I was proud, not because I had anything to do with that, right? But because he's my blood. And honestly, that transcends to the people on your team too. Coach remembers we had two kids on our team, Chibuzi and Eugene, and they were not related. But Eugene lost some match in the semifinals, and Chibuzi was crying. Like, he was like, we had to like stop him. Like, he was like going mad, like, and he was like, boo-hoo, and he was like, no, they can't do it to him like that, because there was some controversial call or something. And it was like that passion he had for his teammate and for my brother, you know, that's what you need to share. You need to be happy that he's achieving, just like you'd be happy that you're achieving.
I think to that point too, because sometimes you have, like you said, it was on an even playing field, and your brother coming past you up as you got older. But I can tell by listening to you that doesn't affect you. You're not mad about it now. So I think that's there can be that competitive drive when you're younger, but I think at the end you gotta be okay with, like you said, being okay with your brother's accomplishments and letting that happen. Lyric, you've had that hand up for a minute. Go ahead, girl.
So what is your favorite quote you live by?
Nice.
Oh, that's a good
Excellent.
one.
It's hard for a reason.
Okay. All right, let me think for a second, bro. Ooh. Okay.
That's a lot of them. Okay. Oh, man.
Wow. Of course,
I'm trying
like,
to
I think about these things all the time, and then like somebody asked me, I'm like,
well, let me.
oh, my father's quote.
Yeah.
That's the one.
When we talk about excellence, it's hard for a reason, you know? I was like, it requires that.
And then to push that which is comfortable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you got to want it. You got to be concerned with the legacy. But
So say the whole quote at one time so they can understand the quote.
Oh, man. Okay.
Okay. So excellence is hard for a reason. He's on this call, by the way.
Yeah.
But
he forces men to push that which is comfortable, I think.
But you've got to want it. You've got to be concerned with the legacy.
Yeah.
The wording in the
So, okay. So it's excellence is hard for a reason. It forces men to push that which is comfortable, but you have to want it, and you have to be concerned with the legacy. So, along that line, you probably get on me later.
Yeah.
But also like
I'll give you one more actually
we
because I
pulled it
keep
up.
this on me. 1 second. It is right here. Is it not? Let's see. Do I got Wi-Fi? There we go. Let's see here. Okay. Boom. Okay. There's Admiral Hyman G. Rickover, who is the like father of the nuclear navy, or like grandpa of the nuclear navy. Yeah. Very smart man. Extremely smart. Extremely hardworking. Kind of crazy too. But he has a quote that says, "When doing a job, any job, one must feel that he owns it and act as though he will remain in that job forever." So I keep that as my email quote. And the reason I do is I think that like encompasses that idea of passion, you know? Like when you have a job, you need to own it. You have to act as if that is going to be the job for like the rest of your life. Like you are going to commit to it, right? And of course it won't be. Like I said before, you're going to have evolutions and you're going to go through many things in your life. But approach things with that passion, you know? So.
Love it. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. We don't keep them all night. But Ricky and Christian, from me, thank you. These kids learned so much. I learned so much. Thanks for coming on and spending time you didn't have to spend with them. Coach Sean, you can wrap us up, and we'll go from there.
Guys, everybody tell Ricky and Christian thank you. It was
Thank you.
Thank you.
you guys for coming on. It was awesome. I'm extremely proud of you and just thank you for everything. Keep it up, boys.
And last thing, if you're ever come visit
Thank you,
Coach Sean, please come into the room. Come around. We'll get you some shirts mailed up there.
You get the work in.
You know, come in, run.
Coach, you got any big boys?
We'll find them, Christian. Yeah. If you're ever in town, please come by and thank you for all our kids, man. That was awesome. Thank you for coming on. So, guys, just to kind of wrap up, tomorrow we'll get you a challenge out for Tuesday. Wednesday we got a workout. Thursday we'll have another challenge, but I haven't come up with the challenge yet for tomorrow. Maybe I'll have Ricky and Christian give Coach Sean a challenge for you guys, and then we'll put out something. And don't be nice to them because we haven't been on the challenges.
So there needs to be a precursor. That is like they're doing 1,000 push-ups, 1,000, pull squat or 60
minutes.
They really working. They working.
Pull squats. So think of something, boys. Get a hold of us. We'll work something out. But guys, thank you so much. It was outstanding.
Oh, not a problem.
Again,
Bye, guys.
Everybody wave bye. Tell them bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Work hard, guys.
I love it.